Grub for Life, helping you to manage fussy and faddy eating for toddlers. Most children refuse to eat at some stage. It's a very normal part of development. There are periods of development when a child is more likely to reject specific foods or exhibit other forms of fussy eating. New foods may need several introductions before a baby finds them acceptable. Late weaning, after the age of 6 months, tends to increase the likelihood of a baby developing feeding issues later. Children learn from others, so most feeding issues resolve themselves. Around the age of 3, some children refuse foods which were previously big favourites. They may become quite distressed about the way a food is served. Children also refuse food at this age because of how they feel generally. They might be tired or distracted by the TV or just don't feel so well. All of these things can make a child decide they don't want to eat. You can also have a big impact, positively and negatively. Big portions of food and extra drinks fill children up, and overreacting when children don't want to eat can exacerbate feeding problems. The good news is the vast majority of children get over their feeding issues without adversely affecting their health. If food refusal persists, you should keep an eye out for underlying causes or potential consequences of long-term food refusal. Weaning is the golden time to help a baby learn to enjoy new tastes, textures and foods. As the brain develops, so too does the memory. The baby builds up a memory of familiar foods and quickly recognises foods which are new. When it's time to move on to solid food, the more textures, flavours and different foods a baby is exposed to between 6 and 12 months, the more likely they are to go on to enjoy happy, stress-free family meals. Most babies need to start weaning by around 6 months. The neophobic response is a built-in evolutionary protection for babies to stop them eating poisonous, harmful substances like rocks, animal feces and berries. The response goes right back to the early stages of prehistoric human development when babies would crawl on the ground in caves or primitive shelters. For many babies now, it's the neophobic response which causes them to reject unfamiliar foods. It can be a long, slow process for a new food to become completely accepted. A child may need up to 13 exposures to a food before they accept it. They can look at it, touch it, smell the food before they eventually eat it. Patience is definitely needed. The more a child sees other people eating the food, the more likely they are to try it themselves, eventually. By the age of 3, The reasons for food refusal get a little more complex. Children start to associate foods with other things that they might find frightening or disgusting. A child may reject one food because of the way it's positioned on a plate next to another food that they don't want to eat. The mantra for carers to get through this phase of problem eating is slowly does it, and don't try to be too clever. Forcing children to eat or hiding foods rarely works. It may actually make the problem worse. Again, be patient. Introduce the foods in a variety of different activities, like playing with food, preparing it for cooking, until it becomes acceptable for the child to eat it. And don't forget, sometimes, just like you and me, children aren't being fussy or difficult. They just don't feel like eating for very good reasons. If a child who normally eats well says they don't want a meal, ask them why. Above all, don't overreact. Getting stressed at meal times will almost always make the problem worse. As a child carer, you can do a lot to help over-anxious parents about their child's eating. Try to reassure parents and support them. Remind them that food refusal is very normal for most children and that most children grow out of this developmental phase, especially once they start nursery and eat with other children. In a small minority of children, food refusal is caused by medical issues which, if suspected, can easily be confirmed and treated or ruled out by a health professional. Another much smaller group of children have extreme sensitivities to the environment and have difficulty tolerating light and sound changes. These children will often have severe food sensitivities too and may need more intensive support from a dietitian. Now, Let's see what you can remember from this brief session. When does the neophobic response develop in most children? Is it 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or 12 to 18 months? The neophobic phase develops in most children between the age of 6 and 12 months, when they begin to crawl. How many times might a child be exposed to a new food before it becomes acceptable? Is it 3 times, 7 times, or 13 times? Children may need to be exposed to a new food 13 times before they accept it. At what age do toddlers develop distaste, disgust, or contamination refusal? 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years? This type of food refusal develops around the age of 3, when a child has the cognitive ability to associate foods with other substances. Is it a good idea to hide foods children don't like? True or false? It's false. Hiding foods on children's plates can make their food refusal worse. Parents whose children refuse to eat should be encouraged to offer them alternative foods, not overreact, or offer their children drinks instead of the refused food. Parents should be reassured that they shouldn't overreact to a child's food refusal. Any attention to the unwanted behaviour may encourage more of the same. What's a common cause of food refusal? Is it constipation, diarrhoea, or eczema? Constipation leaves a child feeling full and uncomfortable. Naturally, they're more likely to refuse food until they go to the toilet. Thank you for watching this session, and don't forget the Grub for Life team are always here to help if you have further questions.